The following is a sponsored episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm so thrilled to be joined by Mara Williams today. We are going to have an amazing conversation, especially if you're a parent, or even if you're not a parent, if you have children in your life who you want to inspire with business building and entrepreneurship. Mara has some incredible resources for helping you nurture and raise the next generation of entrepreneurs and children who are confident with money and financially literate. Mara, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Ellen.
So, just in case you are new to Mara's world, she is a business coach and author of the Little Books of Big Business series. I actually have them here with me. We'll be talking about them a lot throughout today, but if you're watching the preview on Spotify or on YouTube, you can see her series of books right here. I mean, they're truly, truly incredible. She's also the creator of Let's Play Money. Mara raised young adults who entered their 20s confident in earning, saving, investing, and making thoughtful financial decisions. And as they stepped into adulthood, she began writing and building a platform to help other families navigate that same journey with 6 books now published. Today, Mara helps families raise money confident kids through playful stories, simple activities, and early entrepreneurship. So, Mara, I was telling you, like before we recorded, I was saying how I wish that your books had existed when I was in elementary and middle school. I mean, I was such a bookworm. I spent so much time in the library. I would have absolutely devoured your books, and who knows what kind of path it could have set me on much earlier in life with entrepreneurship. But I think even if we remove this dream or vision of entrepreneurship aside, your work is so important because of the financial literacy piece, right? Like all of us need that in our lives to be successful as adults, regardless of whether we choose a path of entrepreneurship or not. And what I find interesting is that you actually talk about teaching money skills much earlier than most families do. In fact, I was watching one of your videos on YouTube. You have a great YouTube channel full of additional videos and resources for parents and kids alike. And I remember hearing you say something about how children's financial habits or expectations are set by the ages of 7 to 9, which I was shocked by. I did not realize that. Can you expand a little bit more around the science of that?
Yeah, that was something that struck me as well. Kids are really forming habits in that sort of third to sixth grade time frame. And the things that they do, recycling paper and cardboard into the recycler, they learn that habit, picking up a book and reading and normalizing that, and money, having money around and talking about it, having it be part of their lives is something that they will carry forward. I did an event for a women's group about a year ago, and it was a lot of older women in their probably after 70s, and one of them marched right up to me and she told me a story about her mother giving her some money when she was probably 12 or 14 going on a trip with a girlfriend, and she bought a few little things to take home and came home with a little bit of money, and her mom took it back from her. And she said that that carried from the time that she was that young girl all the way into her 70s, that she made a decision about money. No one was going to take any money from her, and she was always going to spend all her money. And I was like, the
Wow.
imprint of this woman for 70, 60 years, it just is so compelling what happens when kids are forming and young and building those habits.
Wow. No, that is, I mean, it's mind blowing because as you were saying that, I was trying to think back to like what are my earliest memories of money. And I think there's like twofold for me, like as a child growing up in a immigrant family as a first generation American. I remember being a lot more aware of my parents' financial situation than probably like the average child of my age does. So there was that like theoretical sense of it. But then there's also like actual memories of physically holding money. Like I still remember the $8 I got one time for it was from the Tooth Fairy, and I felt like the richest person in the world. I remember I would keep it in this like little yellow box, and like every day I would count my money and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have $8. And then I also remember distinctly like a trip I took to the coast with my childhood best friend and her parents. And I remember her mom giving us $20 each and sending us into the dollar store and say, have fun, have a shopping spree. And again, I felt like so wealthy. And it taught me a lot about, I think, generosity and the joy that money can bring when you're able to spend it on other people and making experiences with other people. So I totally see your point there. I think it's so crucial. I'm wondering at that young age when children are forming these habits and these thoughts about money, how involved do you feel like children should be in the awareness of the family's financial situation? So not just like teaching them financial principles, but if the family, struggles to pay bills, or maybe it's the opposite, maybe they have an overabundance and they're very wealthy, how much should a child you feel be in tune with their family's financial situation?
It's a great question, Ellen. A couple layers to that is one, we always want to start developmentally. So a kindergartner, what they're learning about money is different than a sixth grader, different than an eighth grader, and so forth. So we're giving them appropriate developmental information. The second piece is I believe kids need to start with something they understand. So they understand wanting to buy a skateboard or wanting to buy a video game. And they also understand what a lemonade stand represents or walking a dog and earning money. So my platform pitch is make it fun and playful so that they can understand if I walk the dog, I get some money in my hand. If I have the lemonade, here's what happens. And then that's where the conversation starts to blossom. Okay, you've had the lemonade stand, and now was there any profit left? What are you going to do with the profit? And now the conversation goes. And then the next step is maybe the family goes on a vacation and the kids get to have some say in like maybe the food budget. Okay, every day we're going to allot $50 or $100, whatever the size of the trip is and the family. Where do you think we should spend it? So again, it's applying it to something that's really happening to them versus something retirement funds or things that don't mean anything to them. I certainly showed my kids the bills in the household, but they were more teenagers and they had some real input about whether we should pay for streaming or what we should do. It was a great conversation, but not when they were in kindergarten, certainly.
That makes sense. It's very like age appropriate introductions
Yeah.
or associations, as you were saying. And actually, that's what I really enjoyed. So, you very generously sent me your entire series of your 6 books, and I had the chance to read through Kat Casey Turns Brownies into a Business, which actually is available. If you're listening to this podcast, Mara has created such a generous freebie where you can actually download the digital copy of this book. So, if you want to kind of get a glimpse into what her writing is like, what her storytelling is like for your kids, like definitely download the digital copy, read it out to your kids. And then there's a whole series of books that you can then purchase to complete it. But what I really loved about the book with Kat Casey is I loved exactly like what you said. You tied it to like a very real situation where, she's making these brownies and then there's like something happening in her town. And so, she gets a much larger order than she expected. And it was really interesting just the way that you kind of broke down through dialogue, the adults in her life helping kind of guide her on, okay, how much money are we going to have to spend at the grocery store to get the ingredients for the brownies? Where are you going to get the funding? And I thought it was really interesting. There was like a line where I think it was her mom or one of her parents who said, the extra ingredients that you're going to need to bake this quantity of brownies is not part of our weekly grocery budget. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting and probably would be true for a lot of families. It's like an unexpected expense. And how do you prepare for that? And then teaching the children how to then calculate, like you introduced the term cost of goods sold, and like that was taught through this example. So I just think it was done so wonderfully. And I'm just curious, with these different books, is each one introducing kids to like these different entrepreneurship terms? Is that kind of the purpose, or what do you hope a child gains at the end of each book, and how do they all fit together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they do, each kid starts their own different style of business. In Kat Casey's example, she actually has a physical product, and it's a food product, and she learns to cost it out, which actually the reason I wrote that original book was aligning with something my husband, who'd had a business for over 25 years, was having a cost of goods issue. And so I'm like, other people need to know about cost of goods. And so I just wrote it in a simple format and picked, my favorite desserts, brownies, and I love
Yes.
talking about business. So that's kind of where it sort of originated. And then her friend Emma, she becomes a bookkeeper, learns through her grandma's little Christmas tree farm business about bookkeeping. And she starts learning things about like what is tax, what is sales tax, what's the difference between that and the IRS federal tax. And then I wanted to write a book about more service-oriented business. So the next book is Max, and he learns about creating an event to do kind of project management with his group. Nick learns about carpentry and apprentice work, how to cost out a job. So they all kind of build in different ways. At the end, there's a similarity in that they all take their money and they break it into five categories. Kat starts with five kitty banks. Emma uses envelopes. Honestly, it's easier for kids to have envelopes to do that. So I'm like, yeah, that should be easier. But Max uses paint cans and they have different ways that they do it. And so I started like following some financial literacy standards and really wanting to make it, wide so different kids could see themselves in different books and so forth.
That is so cool. And again, I'm just stunned by your ability to distill what are complex topics. I mean, a lot of adults even don't necessarily have a great grasp on a lot of these terms, but you're able to distill them into such easy to understand and relatable situations and examples. And actually, I started reading Emma's book, the one where she gets into bookkeeping. And, my only experience with bookkeeping, I mean, I've always outsourced bookkeeping pretty much from the beginning of my business. So it's like when I think of bookkeeping, I think of like QuickBooks and all these complex, line items. But the way you broke it down the book, it was like her grandma gave her this pile of receipts and was like, okay, we're going to organize this into three categories, right? And I think for a kid that becomes so much easier to understand, and you explained like what are the different types of expenses? Like how does a marketing expense differ from, a cost of goods expense? I don't know. It was just so age appropriate, and I thought again, so brilliant. And you mentioned the five buckets at the end where they are able to wisely allocate the profits from each of their respective businesses. Can you share a little bit more about what that looks like? Like, is it teaching kids how to save and spend appropriately, or what is the function of the five buckets?
The function of the five is to have them take the chunk of money in their hand and to allocate it first in personal, like what they want to save and spend, and there's a donation in there as well. But I also wanted them to have a business category because I find in adult businesses, one of the biggest mistakes I see is people start a hobby business and they're running it through their personal checking account. So I really wanted kids to see, like, let's separate the money right away. That's a different category.
Yeah.
And then I added the fifth category as a long-term savings. So for kids, they might be saving for a bike or some Christmas presents or something short term, $100, maybe even, a couple $100. But I want them, for Kat, I want her to think about saving ahead to when she owns her own bakery and opens it, or when they want to go to college, that longer term savings. So that's why I put that fifth category in there as well.
So smart. And to your point, a lot more relatable to kids than saving for retirement or whatnot. Because you're right, even at a young age, I was already thinking about college. It was something that was talked about a lot in my family growing up. And so that was kind of early on my, vision board for like long-term goals. So I love that. Also, I just want to say, seriously, like these books, if you have kids, you've got to get it for them. I love too that even though they are really rooted in financial principles and financial education, there's still that through line. Like all the kids, they live in Maintown, USA. They have their like Wednesday night dinners as families. And even like the names, I noticed the name of the cafe, for example, popped up in the first book and then it popped up again in the second book. So there definitely is that through line, that plot line that kind of makes it feel like you're learning about this little community in this little town. So I think there's other elements of storytelling that your kids will really appreciate too. Outside of, resources like yours, Mara, I think many parents feel unprepared themselves to teach financial literacy. And so, what is one simple place that a parent or someone in a parental role could start this week without needing specialized knowledge or a lot of time to engage with the kids in their lives about financial literacy and business building concepts?
Actually, what pops first and foremost in my mind is cash.
Mm,
I love kids to have access to cash, and it can be play money. You can go on Amazon or go to Target and you can buy packs of play money. Especially what's happening right now is everything is going digital in money. So kids are only seeing tap, swipe. They don't even see it because it's happening on our phones. We just order and it shows up at our door, right? Think
Yeah.
about that $8 that you loved looking at from the tooth
Yeah.
fairy and how important that was. It felt there was a weight to it. So
Yeah.
when kids learn math, as an example, they learn to count on their fingers and then they count apples. And if we can put some quarters in front of them and let them count those. If you had a money jar at home, again, depending on the age, even a 12-year-old loves to hold some cash, some change. So you could go to the bank and just get some real money and let that be the family money. You could order the fake cash. In all of my Let's Play Money packets, every single packet has a printable cash page in it, just, fake. They color it, they cut it. No matter where I am, Girl Scouts, Boys and Girls Club, classrooms, that's their favorite page always. They love counting cash and coloring it and just playing with it. So that's just the easiest thing for parents.
That's such a great tip. And actually, I have a Let's Play Money kit in front of me because you sent one over as well. Can you explain a little bit how this resource, the Let's Play Money kit, kind of pairs with your books? Is it a separate resource or is it something that should be, I guess, worked through together for the child?
It's a separate resource that dovetails very well. There's two parts that started it. One is I was volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club. I was going in and reading to the kids during summer camp time. And I felt like they needed something sort of busy to do with their hands. So I started creating little worksheets for them to color and cut and so forth. And they ultimately started playing with money and so forth. It just sort of evolved. And my dad, growing up, always made me little word play crossword puzzles and all kinds of fun things. So I really love any type of, coloring and cutting. And then I had parents and grandparents asking me, well, do you have curriculum? Do you have curriculum? Well, I don't. So my answer to that was more these activity packets. So they're PK, preschool kindergarten, through sixth grade every month. So in 2024, I literally spent every night on my laptop building out 16 pages per grade per month. So I think you have
Wow.
the third grade May packet.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I printed out one too. And so this one starts with just a little bit of like a newsletter, like you might read the paper on a Sunday morning. And this in May, we're talking about farmers market stuff. I'm bringing kids into something colorful, something that they might know about or know adjacent, maybe learning about what is a farmers market. And then there's a fun page where they can color, and those, again, depending on the age, what's in there, more coloring. My editor is like, there's a lot of coloring. Like, believe me, kids, they feel comfortable coloring. So we're not trying to start them out, here's some money, figure out your wants and needs. Like, let them color, let them get used to it. And then a little worksheet of keeping money safe. Like, do we put it in a wallet? Do we put it in the bank? Like, what do we do? So just starting to introduce. So there's always, each packet has a life activity, 2 pages. Each packet has a money math page, again, age appropriate. And this one has just some little, if you're looking at it on camera, there's actual cash pictures. And because this is their favorite page, the cash corner.
Yes.
Yeah. And then what happened was I had a parent say, well, my child said they already saw the cash corner. I'm like, okay, well, now I've got to give them something to do with it. So I started adding in a pop-up shop. And so this one has a vegetable stand. And this is a great classroom activity. You can print more than the kids can make their own. They don't even need the worksheet. And so they can play with each other and sell stuff. And then I integrate a business story. These do come from the little book series. I'll just take a simple part of the story. And then I have 2 more pages of some type of business exercise that they're doing. And then we end it with a game. So there's no order that people have to do them in. When you hand them out to kids, they'll just sit down and consume them. It's really just an easy way. And in the meantime, if they're listening to the stories too, reading the books or watching the videos, then it all kind of connects, but they don't have to at the same time.
That's incredible. I'm still just in awe that you have created these packets for what is that, 7 grade levels, pre-K through 6th grade. Yeah, every single month. Wow, like what a incredible volume of creativity, honestly, and being able to like put your mind into the shoes of a 5-year-old versus a 12-year-old because that's a very different experience. So is this a continuous subscription type of product that parents can purchase where if they, like had a first grader and a fourth grader and they purchase these activity packets that they would get mailed to them monthly, or is it a digital download? Like, how does that work?
Right now, it is a digital download. You can go on and order, for example, the third grade series, and you get all 12 of the packets to download and print, and you get all six of the books in PDF form. So it's
Ooh,
all ready to go. It's like $97. You get the whole thing.
yeah.
And then you can order the books separately if you want the physical books and so forth. I have to say, as a business owner, just like we have to do trial and error. And so
Yeah.
I did a small thing last year where I did print them and I sent them with cute little wallets and all kinds of other things. And I found that people really were after more of the digital. So that's really been the big winner for me. Yeah.
Yeah, the convenience of that is so great. And of course, it's like if like a kid falls in love with a particular activity, then you can print multiple copies and they can
Yes.
continue to utilize it. So that's really smart. One thing that stood out to me in the third grade packet that you sent me is this like life activity. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, you'll see the actual sheet in front of me. But this safety activity around home ownership and like home safety, this was really interesting to me because so recently my husband and I bought a brick and mortar retail business, right? And so we're learning a lot about, all the different liabilities and insurance policies that you have to have in place when you have a business of that nature, but also we are homeowners. And so, buying home insurance and all that stuff. And so I thought it was really cool how your financial education extends beyond just like physical money or investments or spending or things of that nature. You're also thinking about the broader scope of financial confidence with how do you introduce concepts of like liability and safety to children and helping them prepare to understand that, oh, if you own a home someday, there are certain risks involved. And how do you take good care of that property and what does that look like? And so I thought that was just really fascinating. Is that something that you try to bring into all of your packets, like these concepts that extend beyond just money exchange, so to speak?
The way that that came into it is there's actually financial literacy standards. I decided if
Mm,
I was really going to go all in on this, first it started with writing some fun books. I really wanted to know what kids needed to know. And
yeah.
so all of the packets are layered with the Washington State, which is where I live, financial literacy standards, and the National Financial Educator standards. And so there's standards for risk. And so I started layering in, and at the back of each packet, it'll show which standards it hits. And so
Okay.
that was where I wouldn't have come up with like teaching kids about safety on my own, but it is literally a standard. And when you think about it, it is a risk. If you lose something, you lose money. If you
Hmm.
fix it, or you actually lose the physical item, or if there's a problem. In the fifth book, the farmer's market book, I put more risk things in there because I hadn't been writing about that. And the mom who has a pop-up tent, it blew away. It was a risk that would have hurt somebody. And the kid stubs his toe and has to go to the hospital. And, there's a risk of something happening. And so I tried to build it into the stories as well in that case.
That is super helpful. Okay, so I didn't even realize that there was that whole standardization, I guess, of these concepts. But that's another thing that I really admire about what you've built is that you have a certification. And actually, if you want to jump in with what it is, because I don't want to butcher
Oh,
it.
yeah, it's just a financial educator certification. So I'm a certified coach and a certified financial literacy educator would be who I am, what I am.
Okay, so I think having that additional certification is really helpful with having that standardization. I think is just so important to making sure, like you said, that you're hitting all the spots and it's like a really holistic education for children. Speaking of holistic and, pairing these activity packets that are grade appropriate, age appropriate with the series of little books of big business, you also have this additional resource called Let's Play Money, this family zine. I'm assuming that's like short for like magazine and whatnot. How does this come into play with the other two resources we've already talked about?
Something that parents could just start right away. And I thought about writing a book, like, so I could explain why and all the things. And I thought, no, I have to keep it fun for parents too. Moms are busy, they're going a million different directions. And so I just created some kind of application again that they can download.
Yeah.
It's free on the website. There's 3 activities they can start in right away. There's a money pullout that they can cut and color right in there. And so it's just, I think it's low tech. Kids are I get so much complaints about how much screen time kids are getting, and I really wanted something low tech that they could pull out. It's a great something to have for the summer to
Yeah.
do something in the backyard, or kids are bored, pull out one of those activities. So that's really where that came from.
Awesome. So this is like a one-time resource that you created as a digital download. It's not like you're creating a new family zine every month. Right.
Right, right. The packets are really, that's just like a teaser taster, and the
Mm.
3 different activities align with the books. So it's a bit of a marketing piece, but I really wanted it to be valuable. I wanted
Yeah.
someone to be able to turn to any of the page, immediately start in on it. And so I paired that with the Cat Casey book. So if someone wants to just understand what I'm up to, they can get both of those things. And I think that starts to help them see.
Absolutely. It's such a great introduction. And speaking of the Cat Casey book, I love how, like you said, the actual money activities align with what the characters are going through in the book. So, like for your kids, if they're reading about Cat Casey and her brownie business, they can then come into this money moment number one. And there's this whole activity that's created where they can then create, like, bake a sheet of brownies and then decide, okay, how do I want to cut these brownies? What do I want to price these brownies? So they kind of get to like practice in real life alongside this fictional character that they're reading about. And I feel like it's a very immersive experience for a young reader to get to play out what they're actually reading about. So, very, very cool there. I think for a lot of parents, they understand that raising money confident kids is important and financial literacy is important. But I would love for you to share why you especially feel that these early lessons, so again, that the age range that you're servicing pre-K through 6th grade, why do these early lessons in earning, saving, and creating revenue streams, income streams, if you will, why do they matter just as much or maybe even more than the money conversations that families are having with teens and young adults?
Yeah, I have 2 young adults that are mine that are in their 20s, and I watched their cousins, neighbors, peers at school really all the things that you have to go through when you turn about 16. There's so much that happens from getting that first job, deciding what you're going to spend on like a college education or a trade school, however you're going to do that, first apartment, first car, all the things. There's a lot that happens. And kids at that point feel like they should already know. There's a real confidence cliff that they fall off if they hadn't had any conversation. I watched it over and over and over again. And so if we don't catch them when they're early, by the time they're teens and sort of know it all, they don't really feel comfortable talking about it. And their mistakes are highlighted because if you choose to spend money out of state tuition, as an example, and then you bounce back a year because it wasn't the right thing. Now you've spent all these thousands of dollars, but you didn't really have the language to talk to your parents about. So the goal is to raise confident money kids when they're young, start the conversation again, lemonade stands, or buying things, earning things, and then when they are ready to get that first job, they're ready to take those next steps, the conversation keeps going. It just levels up. My kids still talk to me about money. We still have conversations about their next job or their next purchase, their rent or whatever we're talking about. And I have an older mother, and my husband does too. We're handling their money. So this is like this whole spectrum that happens. If we don't start it when they're young, then we just don't have that language. We don't have that conversation with them. And that's, for me, I've just seen it crush young adults so many times that we've got to start it much earlier.
Absolutely. It really feels kind of like a muscle, right? It's like if you have to train it, and people always say like resilience is like a muscle. It's not something you're born with. It's not something you just magically have one day. You have to actually utilize and practice it. And I think the same is absolutely true for money. If there are any parents or again, people in a parental role listening to this and they're like, well, my kids are already past that age. They're already, past those prime formation years of 7 to 9 years old, or they're even past 6th grade, and they're worried hearing that they haven't started these conversations early. What encouragement would you give to parents of teens and young adults who are just now kind of beginning to realize like, hey, this is something that we should be talking about as a family? What tips do you have for people in that situation?
Yeah. Well, it's never too late to start. always can dive in. Shoulder to shoulder is a great way. If you're in a car with someone, maybe learning new ways to talk, or in a safe environment, a safe activity, even starting to give them some more responsibility. We don't give kids responsibility soon enough in many cases. So starting with something like, hey, let's not talk about, your college or your where you're living, but help me plan this vacation, or let's plan out the holiday spending, and let's have a conversation. What do you think? And start having them give some input so they can see their impact. That's a great place. Start something, a little less, emotional or big.
Yeah.
The second thing is, a lot of people want to talk about savings, and saving is very important. But I want to talk about earning. How do you earn money? When kids learn how to earn, then they have something to save. So we want to talk to those young adults about, what is it that you like? Who are you? Do you like to be in an office and sit with people? Are you someone that likes to be outside? How do you want to earn money? If we can build confident earners, that's going to change the whole dynamic around financial literacy.
I could not agree with that more. I feel so strongly about that, Mara. I feel like, that that saying that's like you can't save your way to being a millionaire. Like you really do have to understand that if you only have so much money to work with, right? It's a lot harder to continue to cut expenses, especially when you're already at the bare minimum versus finding a way to increase, like you said, your earning potential. It's much easier to save and invest your way to wealth when you have more resources coming in, which makes logical sense. But I think you're right. A lot of people do miss that key component of teaching their kids how to increase their earning potential. So I think that was such a great reminder. To wrap up our conversation, obviously you have incredible resources, the Little Books of Big Business series and the Let's Play Money zine and these activity packets. In addition to utilizing resources like that with their kids, for families who are really committed to raising capable, money smart kids, and in a joyful way, not in a stressful, like, oh, we must do this, but like really making money feel like just like an everyday part of life. Do you have any additional tips for how to just infuse that mindset into day-to-day living, just little activities or tips and tricks you've picked up along the way through the years of how they can be placing that kind of at the forefront of their daily activities, regardless of, the resources they have on hand in the moment?
Yeah, I would say think of it in a play-based way. So how can you gamify it? How can you make it fun? If you're already going to the grocery store, maybe you give the kids a certain amount of a budget that they have to shop within and purchase it. If you're going on that vacation, if you're buying school supplies, in one of the packets, there's a whole budget sheet in there about purchasing. Let the kids be part of it, give them responsibility in that age appropriate way, and make it fun. Just there's got to be a fun way to spin it. That's the key, because then kids' brains click on, they associate money with something playful. When I was a kid, my grandparents we had these coffee cans that were full of coins, and we played poker. We played money. We
That's
played
amazing.
money. And that was part of at their grandparents' place, and it was fun. It was joyful. We knew
Mhm.
how much, 100 pennies equaled, we knew the whole thing. It wasn't about what we were earning or spending. It was just fun. And so that would be a place. What can they do this week that would be fun to play with money?
That's such a great tip. And I concur. I feel like as a kid, so many of my memories of money were rooted in play and imagination and creativity, even if it wasn't real money, if it was just pretend money, right? But because of that, I think because to your point, it felt more like a game. I think as an adult, it made me feel more comfortable, perhaps with taking risks around it and treating it, as like, oh, this is fun. There's potential rather than only looking at business through the lens of risk. And so I think that's beautiful. That's such a great message to end on. Mara, where can people continue to connect with you, be part of Little Books of Big Business's world and ecosystem, and get access to your resources, especially the freebie if they want an intro to what your books and that Let's Play Money zine that we refer to?
Yeah, everything is at thelittlebooksofbigbusiness.com. You can go there and download that free zine and book. Just put your email in. There's also links on there to my YouTube channels. So there's a channel at the Little Books of Big Business that's more, I've aligned it more for the parents. And then there's a Let's Play Money channel that's a kids channel. So I read all the books aloud. And so the kids, it's free. They're up there. They can go and listen to me read the books. And if they have the book with them, then they can sit and listen to it as well. So we just want kids to get into those books in some way. So if it's through video or the physical book, however they do it. But the links are all on the website. They only have to know the one thing, the littlebooksofbigbusiness.com.
That's amazing. Okay, all of those links will be below in the show notes. So make sure you check them out, especially again, make sure you at the very least download that first book. It's such an invaluable resource. And if you're not a parent, think of a kid in your life that would benefit from this. Download it, print it out for them, give it to them as a gift. I promise you it will pay dividends in their lives for many, many years to come. So, Mara, you are incredible. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show. And thank you truly for creating such an invaluable resource that I know will impact generations of future entrepreneurs. So, thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next episode.